Hey everybody, welcome back to Sunday Afternoon Smokes, your casual conversation podcast from the upstate of South Carolina. My name is Chris. I'm your host. I'm also the owner and operator of The Cigar Box, a mobile cigar bar that serves the upstate and beyond. And if you've been enjoying these conversations and you want to support the show, the best thing you can do is simply to give us a follow. I'd appreciate it. Today, I have the immense privilege of sitting down with Francie Staub. Did I say that right? Staub? Mm-hmm. Francie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm obviously a big fan of yours and a big fan of the podcast, so I'm really happy to be here.
Well, just for listener understanding, Francie and I, along with her husband Tony and my wife Jennifer, we are very good friends and have been for the last 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I met your husband when I was working in the butcher shop in the West Village, and things just kind of went from there. And now, I mean, when I say we're good friends, I mean like I'm the guy who stays the night at your house when your husband has hip surgery, just in case you need help.
That's right. You were our hero.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. So I have been looking forward to this episode for a very long time. Not long after I first started, I think I said, I got to get you on the show.
You did.
And here we are, 62 episodes later, and you're sitting here.
Yeah.
By the way, as I mentioned, you will be the last episode before Sunday Afternoon Smokes goes to video. And you just said before we started rolling that you're not unhappy to be audio only.
I am not. I have to admit, I hate seeing myself on camera, so this suits me perfectly well.
Why?
You know, I think for a lot of people, it's harder to hear your own voice on a recording or see yourself on camera. You're your own worst critic, and I definitely fall in that camp. So I'm very satisfied the way we're doing this.
Well, I mean, but you live and operate and have for probably most of your entire adulthood in the world of marketing, which is photos and pictures and cameras and videos and all of that. So I think it's interesting that you hate being on.
I do. It's interesting. So there's a saying, the cobbler's son wears no shoes. I'm terrible about promoting myself. I'd rather be talking about a brand or a client than talking about myself. So something like this, where it's just me talking about me, is probably the least comfortable aspect of what I do. Although I love talking about marketing, I love representing a brand at a conference or on a panel, but talking about myself is one of my least favorite activities.
Well, but you were just chatting before with my wife before we stepped in the room. And we'll get into, of course, like who you are professionally. And you said that you probably should do more of this stuff.
Yes.
Why?
Well, starting in 2022, I hung up my own shingle, Staub Consulting, which I know we're going to talk about. But before that, I was always working in an ad agency or in-house at a brand doing marketing. But since I have my own company now, obviously letting people know what I do and putting myself out there more is vital. I've been really fortunate that almost from the beginning, I've had clients just through my network and past coworkers and people who I meet through conferences or different venues who've become clients. But marketing myself is something I should do more. I also really enjoy just putting thought leadership out there and talking about what I do. And I think I have some very specific skills within the marketing realm that are always evolving. And so it is interesting to put myself out there more and exchange thoughts, hear what other people are doing, talk about the work I'm doing, and learn and grow and evolve.
Yeah. Well, since 2022, when you launched Staub Consulting, how much of this have you done? Like, have you done other podcasts before?
I have not. I have not. You are my first
Wow.
podcast,
Okay.
but it's an aspiration to do more of this, both representing myself, but also one of my biggest clients is an AI startup called Winston that we'll probably talk about a little bit. And one of my jobs is to help grow their presence in the United States. So doing podcasts on their behalf is on my roadmap. So yeah, you're my first and hopefully not my last.
No, certainly not.
But I tend to do more one-to-one conversations, so reaching out and having conversations with potential clients. I go to a lot of conferences and meet people there, take part in panels, things like that. But the one-on-one podcast is not something I've been doing.
Well, there's a bazillion podcasts in the world, and I mean literally there's an absurd number of podcasts, and there's also an absurd number of them that are very small like mine, but that are just very remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are on like headphones or using their AirPods connected to their computer. So, I mean, that's easily doable from anywhere, right? You just set up at home and do those, and do what all the people do, like wear a nice top and wear shorts so nobody can see.
Very true.
But I just figured, because I know you go back and forth a lot from between here and New York, I don't know what the podcast landscape is like up there in New York City. Have you done any research into that or digging around to see who's available and trying to like get yourself onto any shows?
A little bit. You're absolutely right that New York is not necessarily the hub for podcasts as it is for so many other things, because so many people are just doing it from wherever, from home. Especially since COVID, I feel like there's just been a plethora of podcasts that have sprung up from all over the country, all over the world. And so I feel like there's less of an epicenter for that. And it's more dispersed. So it's something I've done a little bit of research, and I'm an avid podcast listener.
Really?
Yeah. Constantly.
What do you like to listen to?
A combination of some just news and politics, which I'm not going to talk about. But a lot of industry stuff. I'm always trying to learn more about what's going on in marketing, what's going on in fintech, things like that. And then I have a lot of just sort of fun podcasts, like the Smart List podcast or Good Hang with Amy Poehler, that are more of my, when I work out and I just want to listen to something interesting and that makes me laugh, I'll listen to those.
Sure. I didn't hear Sunday Afternoon Smokes in there, so this show's over. We're done.
It's been nice meeting all of you listeners. Thank you. No, honestly, I do listen to your podcast. I love it. I love learning about people. I'm an avid reader as well, and I really only read nonfiction and mostly biographies and autobiographies, although I do love a history book. But it's because I love learning about people and what makes them tick and looking under the hood and understanding the journey. I feel like even the most successful person has had their setbacks and trials and tribulations. And so I love learning about people. So your podcast has been fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Because you're talking to people that I know their names from around town, or like I love Rise Bakery. I loved your session with, is it Julian Louis? He makes the best bread. I'm obsessed.
I did go over there, like I said, and got one of their like ham and butter baguette.
How was it?
Oh, it was phenomenal.
So that actually really made me laugh, because I think, I have my good friend who lives in Australia who visits a lot. And whenever she's here, she makes me go like every other day to get the ham and butter baguette. And she gets that, and there's I think a brie and fig or brie and jam one. And I never have tasted her ham and butter, but now I need to.
Oh, it's good.
She raves about it.
Yeah, it's the ham is a little smoky and it's salty. The butter is, I don't know if he's using salted butter or unsalted, what's going on there, but the butter's creamy, and then the baguette is fresh. And of course, the baguettes he's making is not the baguette you're going to get at the Publix bakery.
Oh, I agree.
Right?
It's the best baguette in town.
So it's
so good.
I'm not going to lie. It is a workout for the mandible. I mean, your jaw,
Yeah.
you're going to work at it, but it's crunchy on the outside. It's fluffy on the inside with the smoked, with the salty ham and the cream of the butter. I mean,
so good.
It's phenomenal. So shout out to Rise Bakery.
Yeah. Now, this is going to start to sound like an ad for Rise Bakery, but have you tried the country loaf?
I'm sure.
It is so good. We almost can't be trusted around it. We have to be strategic when we buy it and make sure people are coming over, because I could eat the whole loaf.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Jennifer's making sourdough here at home. So we don't normally eat.
So am I, but mine is not as good as hers.
Hers is really good, but I mentioned this before in a different episode. I bought her a temperature controlled warming box.
I heard you say that.
Yeah, because
I don't have that, but that sounds great.
It's like $50 from Breadtopia, I think it is, like breadtopia.com. And it's just this little foil-lined insulated box with a little controller on it. It allows you to set the temperature and the duration. So you do your sourdough starter, and I don't know, this is not what I do, but you feed it and you let it rise, and it's got to be, the room temperature has to be right, and our house is usually too cold to get a good rise. So it just throws it in the box for 12 hours at 72 or whatever, and her bread is phenomenal. So
that's great.
That's so good.
Your wife is an amazing baker.
She's doing great, man. I mean, she was, even before, but even now, I'm super proud of her, because it gives her something to do, something she can accomplish,
Yeah.
and something I get to eat.
Yes.
So it's a win all around.
Well, I have stolen her great Aunt Edna's pound cake recipe as my own.
She's going to turn into Francie's pancake. All right. Well, let's get really into the nuts and bolts here after all the pleasantries, which I've enjoyed. But you weren't born a marketer. You were just born Francie. You're a Virginia girl.
I am. Virginia Beach, Virginia.
You still have family there?
I do. Not a ton. Some of my family has moved to Northern Virginia, but yeah, I still have my brother there.
And a graduate of UVA.
Yes.
Which I know you're pretty, I don't know. I just sense the loyalty to the alma mater there.
Yeah. My father went to the University of Virginia, so I always tell people from the time I was a baby, he was whispering in my ear, "You're going to be a Wahoo. You have to go to UVA." So it was the dream to get into UVA, go there, and I loved every second of it.
And you spent, 4 years there?
4 years. I got a degree in art history. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and stumbled into an art history class my first year and found it really interesting, and it was a good baseline knowledge of history and art and philosophy and mythology and religion. There was so much you had to understand to be able to study art, and I thought that was really fascinating. And so I just went with it without a real thought to what I was going to do with it. But
what do art history majors wind up doing if they get lucky enough to work in the field of art?
Two things. Typically museum work, or they continue to study, get their PhD, and teach. But that's, or maybe work in an art gallery. But to be honest, you're probably overqualified on some levels to work in an art gallery with an art history degree. So the little thought I put into it, I explored two things. Working in a museum, which at the time felt very intimidating. Like, how many museums are there? How am I going to work my way up? Although now I've read recently there's a shortage of people to work in museums because they all had the same thought I had. And I was like, oh, could have been the
museum curator.
Curator of the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
But there's, when you get, and by the way, I'm way out of my league here, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it would just seem like a museum may only have just, depending on how big they are and what all they're covering, there's going to be a very few curators there, right?
Right.
So you're really shooting for a very small opportunity nationwide.
True. And now I think that was my hesitation, because I was definitely career minded. I was raring to go to start earning money and getting on my way. So I think that seemed really intimidating to me. But I did go to work for an art gallery, and within a year, it was fun because I love being around art all day and talking about it. But I knew that there wasn't a lot of room for growth or expanding my knowledge or anything. And so it just didn't feel like it was going to be super fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. You know, having been in your house as much as I have and seeing some of the stuff that's in there, and I don't know why, but I just assumed that these were Tony's things. They're yours, or I mean, it's probably some of both, but like there's the interesting, like, I don't know if they're Oriental, but like the painting of the picture in the bathroom downstairs of those women.
Yeah.
Is that you?
That's me.
Okay.
So probably something we have in common is we both love art and both kind of came together with our own art collections. The one in the bathroom was my grandmother's. She was a big art collector.
Okay.
And she had this very chic apartment. She lived in Philadelphia. This is my mom's mom. She had this very mid-century modern chic apartment with amazing art. And that might have been one of the things that really exposed me to art at a young age. And that was a piece from her apartment. I have a lot of her art. And it's sort of random that I put that in the bathroom, but it just went with the color scheme. And I love that piece. So that was hers. I would say we have a mix of both of our collections. He has some really, really cool pieces, both from his family, but also pieces that he collected and bought from friends. I have a lot that I've acquired, and we kind of brought it all together.
Yeah, the piece that intrigues me the most is that it's in the living room on the right-hand side of the TV, and it looks like this halfway melted down saxophone with silver bowls that's all like mangled together. What is that?
That's his. He's going to kill me because I'm not going to be able to tell you the name of the artist right this second, but I will tell you, and maybe you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it's someone who he knows personally who's become a pretty famous artist that's in a lot of important collections. But it's actually ceramic, but he takes old instrument cases and then replicates them, replicates the instruments, and it's kind of sculptural / a bit of a musical instrument looking thing. And it's really unique. I love that piece.
Okay. And then you've got a nice, I don't think tapestry is the right word, but it's in the dining room.
That was mine as well. That was my grandmother's. It was behind her sofa in her living room, and it's sort of an Oriental. It's not a tapestry, but it's a paneled piece that it used to kind of fold more like a panel, but just from age, I had to kind of affix it flat to the wall to just maintain its integrity. But I love that piece. This is why I love art, is I love the piece for the art itself, but I also love the feeling it evokes. It's a mixture of me liking it for what it looks like and the colors, but also the memories of my grandmother's apartment. It just evokes a lot of me. I love that.
Do you spend some of your free time just kind of keeping abreast of what's happening in the art world and looking for interesting pieces? And
a bit. I've slowed down my collecting a little bit right now because we're already maxed out and I have stuff that's not even hung up. So it's a little bit like I have to slap my hand and not do quite as much exploring. But I love to stay on top of what's going on in the art world. I love going to an art exhibit and gallery and just experiencing it. When we travel, we try to buy a piece of art instead of a throwaway souvenir. Just as a way to experience a culture or learn about local art. I will also say I'm so not an art snob. I will literally buy a $15 piece off the street that I just think is cool or just makes me happy. But oftentimes I'll frame it really nice so people think I have more really high-end art than I do. But the piece I get complimented on a ton is in my kitchen, and it was just a print that's been replicated that I bought for $10 in front of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. But I just loved the color and the movement. It's kind of a rainy New York scene with a girl in a yellow rain slicker and umbrella, but I framed it really nicely.
Framing matters.
It does.
It matters a lot.
It does. It makes all the difference.
So you graduate UVA with a major in art history.
Yes.
And then you take a move to Atlanta.
Yes.
And that's where you're working in the art gallery in
Correct.
Atlanta. And this is near the Olympics, right? What year is this?
96.
96. Okay. And you're finding out that this really isn't as exciting and fulfilling as I had thought it would be.
Right.
And so what happens?
I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a good friend who was working in an ad agency in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, of all places.
I've been there.
Yeah. Great town.
Yeah.
And her job sounded so glamorous to me. We were a few years out of college, and she was going on these big TV shoots all over the country. She had a cell phone. This was still in the age where not everybody had a cell phone. Everything about it sounded really glamorous. And I thought, I want to do what she's doing. And that's about as much thought as I put into it. So at the time in Atlanta, there was a temporary agency that specialized in placing people at ad agencies. I think it was called Ad Temps. I'm not sure if they exist anymore. And so when I transitioned out of the gallery, I signed up with them. And the second gig I got was at an ad agency where they needed extra help for 2 weeks. And I got in there and just proved myself and hustled. And at the end of the 2 weeks, they hired me and just took off from there.
And this was, this is early time where the internet's becoming a thing.
Yeah, very early. So we're talking 98, 99. The internet's just starting to take off. It's early days. And once I was a few months into my gig, our clients started asking us for banner ads for this newfangled channel called the internet. And nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole because they were like, why would I want to work on that when I could work on a TV ad? Or
everybody right now who hates banner ads on the internet, you can thank Francie.
Truly. And it was bad back then. This is when there were cheesy ads like Punch the Monkey to try to trick you into clicking on the ad, and big roadblocks that popped up in the middle of a site and you couldn't figure out how to close them. It was obnoxious. In fact, I feel like the first few years I was working in digital marketing, everyone who met me was like, how do I turn off the ads? I hate the ads. So there was a lot of that I had to deal with. But I felt like it was an opportunity for me because I had sort of taken this path towards the art world for a couple years. So I felt behind. And I saw it as an opportunity to leapfrog ahead in this new channel. And not be the person who's a couple years behind anymore, but actually be someone who's at, the bleeding edge of what's happening. So I jumped at the chance, and it was the best decision I've ever made. It's among my top 5 best decisions, and it was sort of a whirlwind because within a few months of working on digital marketing there, it was a feeding frenzy. Like everyone was opening a digital agency, and having 3 months of experience doing it, you were an expert.
I was to say, yeah, you're now leading.
So I quickly got hired away to a digital shop that moved into town from San Francisco, and they were opening an Atlanta office. And then from there, I got hired away to another agency, and it was just a wild, wild ride with so much opportunity.
Yeah, well, the internet brought chaos.
Yeah.
It really did to the world, and it took, I don't know how many years to get it, quote unquote, ironed out, but that was like there's so much information out there.
Mhm.
And like you said, that opened up a whole new world of advertising where, I mean, from your standpoint on the advertising side for companies, I mean, it had to be like the Wild West,
Mhm.
like just
Oh yeah.
throwing everything at the wall and see what works. I want to back up though to something you said, just because I'm curious. When you said it has to be one of the top 5 best decisions that I ever made, uh, do you actually have a top 5 list, or are you
I
just kind of
don't.
throwing it out there as this is really important?
It's really important. I would have to sit down and think of my top 5. That's why I couched it. It could be the best decision I've ever made, but I'd have to sit and think about it.
Sure.
But it's up there. And I think you face these crossroads at different times of your life where you have to make a big decision, and it's scary. And I look at that and count it as such a smart decision. And it was a little scary at the time because it was actually kind of putting myself out there doing something that it's crazy to think now, but at the time, people were like, this internet thing might not take off.
It's a wild thought.
Which is
considering where we are now.
crazy. Although I feel like we're having similar conversations now with AI.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
So I feel like I've lived this a few times where people are like, mobile's not going to take off. The internet's not going to take off. And I've lived through these tech shifts that people doubt, but end up being huge things. And this was the first one I went through. And in fact, there was a huge .com crash, as they refer to it, in 2001, where a lot of the early internet businesses went out of business. And a lot of people got out of, whether it was digital marketing or digital businesses. For a couple of years, there was a downturn. I stuck with it.
But if you stay in.
I stuck with it. The people who got out, I have to imagine that they regret it to some extent, but there were a lot of people who were really scarred. I had a lot of friends who lost their jobs like overnight because they were working at a digital agency. I thankfully was working at a really smart, well-run agency where it wasn't an issue for us, so I didn't lose my job. I know a lot of people who at the time were paper millionaires because they had stock options in these .com companies where they're working, and it just dissipated overnight.
Like I've been on this podcast.
Yeah, so it was a crazy time. I thankfully didn't really get impacted in a negative way, but it was a crazy time, and there was a downturn.
Yeah. Well, speaking of scary, was it difficult or nerve-wracking to you to go from company to company as you're being hired away? I mean, I don't know if they're like, all right, here they're calling you up. Here's who I am. Here's what I do. Here's what I'm being paid.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're luring you away with more money or a bigger title, more responsibility. And so, I mean, just in the business world, a company calls, hey, we like what you do. This is what we want to give you. It's better than what you've got. And so it just kind of makes sense. But I don't know. I can see how in a time where this is all new,
Mm-hmm.
and it could come crashing like a house of cards at any minute. Was that nerve-wracking to go from place to place to place, or did you see it as, I'm just climbing the ladder?
I saw it as climbing the ladder. Now I would find it nerve-wracking, but I was in my mid-20s and I didn't have that much to lose.
Easier to take risks.
It was a lot easier to take risks. I didn't feel like I could go that wrong. I also was very lucky because the person I was working for at that first agency left to go to another agency and then hired me. And then he left to go to another agency and then hired me. So I was very, very lucky that I sort of had this mentor who was pulling me along, and that made me feel more comfortable.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't think I could do that now. And later in my career, I tended to stay in places a lot longer and pride myself on that. But, I think when you're in your 20s, that's when you can take a little bit of a risk and pivot more and kind of figure out what you want and not feel so stuck at one company. It's a good opportunity for growth.
Well, I think it's awesome that you have this guy, is a man?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have this guy who's going from one place to another, but he's bringing you along. And so that says to me, this guy really believes that Francie does quality work.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if he didn't, he would have just left you where you
Right. So it wasn't a matter of having to go into a new company cold and prove myself. I had someone who was bringing me in and knew what I was capable of, and it was much easier.
So, you're all over the place from Atlanta back to Winston-Salem and then bouncing around between several different companies, and eventually you wind up at Razorfish
In New York.
in New York. Is that New York City?
New York City.
Are you in New York
New
City?
York City.
There's a couple of angles I want to talk about. Number one, just work, but let's put in the back of our mind, just because we've talked about it for at least 2 years, taking a trip, the four of us to New
We
York
have to get
City
you there.
and doing like all the food crawls and, you know, so we need to talk about New York City from a cultural standpoint, but let's just stick with, so let's lock that away and try and remember that. And
Yes.
please interrupt me if we get too far and I don't get to it. But so how do you wind up at Razorfish?
I hustled my way into getting to New York. So there was actually a mini step in between that I simplified, but I moved from Atlanta to DC briefly to work for a big agency there. I was kind of working my way up the East Coast. But once I got there, it just felt like New York was so close and calling my name. And I was going up there for meetings. And my whole life, I'd wanted to live in New York and been a little bit intimidated by the process of getting there and the expense. And, it's so hard to get an apartment, things like that. But they had an account in New York that they needed help because someone was going on maternity leave. And I threw my name out there and convinced them that I was the only person who could do it, and they needed to move me to New York, and they did.
It sounds like you don't have a trouble talking about yourself.
Maybe more one-to-one, I'm okay. But yeah, so I talked them into moving. But what's interesting is when I was doing that, I had an interview with Razorfish, mostly because I wanted to figure out what a role in New York should pay to negotiate for my move. And at the time, they were interviewing for the head of an account. I think it was Verizon. And it didn't end up being a fit at the time, but it helped me negotiate for this other role. But then after I got there, 6 months later, they called and they were like, "We have the perfect role for you. Would you still be interested?" And so I ended up leaving the company that moved me up there and going to Razorfish.
Yeah. Well, is Razorfish still around?
Yes and no. They have been acquired, and then for a while the Razorfish name went away, but now it's back again.
Okay, so
but at the time it was the creme de la creme.
Okay, that's what I was going to get at, so we can set the stage properly for the listener. Like because people listening to this podcast, I would imagine, have no idea who Razorfish is, right? So
right, possibly.
Yeah. Like, well, whenever you shared it with me before, I'm like, I don't even know what Razorfish is. So like getting hired at Razorfish was a big deal.
Yeah, that was like the Ivy Leagues of digital marketing. So it was the creme de la creme at the time for digital advertising, digital media, digital customer experience. So it was a really big deal. So doing what I did, and especially having gone through the .com crisis and downturn, I was the previous employer I had been working for, which was the big agency in DC and then New York. They laid off all their digital staff and kept me. And I was a team of one for a short period of time. I was the person who they're like, we'll give Francie all the work and lay everybody off, which again, looking back, was a compliment and honestly gave me such intense experience that you can't replicate. It was really good. But Razorfish, it was just the pantheon of digital marketing at the time, and just the best of the best went to work there. And it was leaps and bounds ahead of anything I'd been doing. In fact, when I got there, I really had to catch up a lot. And I thought I'd been doing really smart, good marketing, but I learned so much within weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. you bounce around in some places between Winston-Salem and DC and wherever else, and you're doing some digital marketing, whatever that looks like, banner ads and who knows what. You can talk about it if you want. I was going to ask, what were you doing at these places? And then when you get to Razorfish, they come and say, okay, we need you to do X.
Yes.
What's the difference?
The difference is I feel like I was doing much more tactical, we need a website, we need a banner ad at the previous employers. And then Razorfish was thinking about it much more strategically from end to end, from why are we doing this campaign? Who is the customer? What do we need to do to break through to them? To thinking through that whole user journey and experience, and not just ending at, okay, here's a banner ad, we need to drive clicks or we need to drive visits to the site. But then now they land on the site. What does the site need to do and how does that connect to the marketing? And then how do we convert them and how many people convert? And let's measure it all and let's optimize. And it was much more true end-to-end marketing than just advertising. And so I just quickly learned a lot. And then Razorfish prided themselves on being the bleeding edge of what you could do. So we were sort of inventing new things. A term that you probably don't know and have no need to ever know, but programmatic media was essentially invented out of Razorfish. The first company that was doing that had rented a conference room from us and started out in our conference room doing programmatic bidding instead of, which at the time was very new.
What is that? I have no idea what that is.
So if you want to reach a certain audience online, at the time you would do a big buy with an ad network. So like Yahoo had a big ad network. So you would say, I want to reach men 45 to 55, and Yahoo would serve those ads for you. Programmatic came along and said, we're going to do that for you, but we're going to collate an audience across these 100 sites. And you can just buy men 45 to 55, not just on Yahoo, but on these 100 sites where they might be. And you can bid for that impression and pay what you want. And it was just a much more sophisticated up-leveling of how you reach someone and much more targeted.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, when Francie Staub has ended her work day and you've got your laptop open or your cell phone open and you're just kind of surfing for, I don't know, you're looking at artwork, you're looking for personal things for the house, you're looking for, you know, some clothes or whatever, and you're seeing ads. Are you thinking to yourself, these people are morons, they don't know what they're doing with all these ads? Or do you find yourself thinking this could be sharper, or are you just like ignoring ads like everybody else?
A combination of all the above. I am definitely always noticing ads. I notice really good targeting. I notice really bad targeting. I hate TV ads. And I think it's because I think most TV ads are really, really bad. So I will pay the premium to have no ads on Netflix or Prime or whatever, Paramount. I really, really hate most TV ads because I think they're subpar. When I do watch them, all I can sit there and think is I can tell the creative brief was this, this, and this. And it just feels very rote to me. I think there's a small fraction that surprise me, and I think they're good. But I'm much more interested in and pay more attention to digital marketing, really good digital marketing, and digital customer experience.
So what's the difference between a really good digital ad and then one that's just mediocre?
Well, I would say it's a level above the ad itself. I think a lot of banner ads are not good. So it's a little bit more about the targeting and the customer experience. And I think some brands have taken it too far the way they follow you around the internet. Like you look at a shirt on Land's End, I don't know, and then it follows you around. But I do think there's some people who do that really well. And so that I will particularly be drawn to and notice. And it's funny, if I'm on Instagram and I see an ad for something, or even an influencer who has a shirt that I'm like, oh, I want to go back and check that out. I don't even bookmark it or do anything because I know they're going to follow me.
It's going to show up. Yeah. Well, I'm curious because, I mean, I don't know how this stuff works. And maybe you can dial it in a little bit for me to help me understand like a really good ad, because it's not just necessarily the picture. Because we live in a day where either taking photos or creating photos is relatively simple.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the tech at our fingertips, it's going to look good.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it about the ad that you see that Francie says, that's a good ad?
Yeah.
It's got to be more than just like the image.
It is. Well, I think marketing is about a few things. It's about creating, communicating, and capturing value for a brand. And so a good ad for me starts with the brand demonstrating that they get me as a consumer. So if, as a marketer, when I'm working with a brand, I think the first thing you really have to do is deeply understand who your audience is, who's your target, who are you trying to capture, and what do they care about? What are their wants and needs? What's a problem you can solve for them? And I think having an understanding of that is what starts to create the beginnings of a good marketing program. Oftentimes that in a big company that will feed into product development. When I was at Capital One, which we'll get to later, one of my jobs as the head of marketing was to understand my target audience and what drives them and what their needs are for credit cards, and feed into the credit card product creation. So long before we were even marketing it, it was like, what makes a great product? But when it comes to an ad, it's like, does it demonstrate an understanding of who I am? And does it telegraph that this product is filling a need in my life? Is there any aspect of storytelling to it that grabs me? So I'm always kind of looking for that. I strongly believe that not every ad has to do everything. So I hate an ad where it's like, get this shirt. It's going to change your life. It's Anna's $9.99 and act today and get it. Like, it's like discount and product and promotion. Like, it's trying to do everything. I believe in communications planning, where you think of every channel and what each channel needs to do in that shopper's journey. So I'm more pleasantly surprised when I'm interacting with a brand and I happen to see them maybe first on a site that I visit a lot. Like, I'm on the Wall Street Journal every morning, and maybe they'll show up there, and then I'm on LinkedIn later and they have a thought leadership piece or content somewhere else. And it's like every point where I happen to be interacting, they show up and there's some kind of value exchange. It's not just blaring an ad, but it's like giving me value. And value can be entertainment, it can be humor, it can be teaching me something. But I think that value exchange is really important in a good ad.
So, I mean, just listening to you, and there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about. Number one is because, I grew up fishing,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're talking about is understanding your audience. That's the difference between just throwing a cast net and then fishing with a lure for a specific fish.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding your target.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a good analogy.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't throw it. Like, I grew up fishing for largemouth bass with my dad. You're not going to go out and catch largemouth bass with a cast net. That's mostly for your bait fish, which is fine if that's what you're trying to catch.
Mm-hmm.
And you can catch any number of different kinds of fish in the cast net. But if I'm going to go fish for a largemouth bass, depending on, there's a lot of factors, depending on what time of year it is, how cold's the water, how's the sun, is the water clear, is it murky? Am I going to do a spinner bait? Am I going to do top water if it's early? Am I going to do a jig? I mean, but I have a specific setup for the circumstances to attract this specific type of fish.
That is an amazing analogy.
Thanks.
Yeah, really good.
But it's more than just, like you said, in your mind, and I think you're someone worth listening to, considering your experience, the things that you've done, the titles that you've held, where you're at now. Marketing does not, I mean, ads are a part of it, but marketing does not equal ads.
Ads are sort of one tactic within the marketing umbrella. So ads are a tactic you can use to communicate something about your brand versus the whole spectrum of marketing starts well before the ad. It continues through how you're going to communicate about your product to your audience, of which ads is one tactic. And then I would say continues to where can they buy your product, and whether it's a brick and mortar store or an online e-commerce site or whatever the case is, really thinking about what that experience is. And especially in the realm of digital marketing, that's so key. We talk about it a lot as if you are going to spend $1 million on ads driving to your website and then you have a mediocre site, it's like pouring water into a leaky bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of the experience is so important. And then once that customer converts, you want to make sure that they start using the product, that they're happy with it, that they're a long-term customer. And so there's this whole customer experience, retention, loyalty element that is within the marketing umbrella.
So you're going like full circle here.
It's
not just, for, I don't know, especially small companies,
Mm-hmm.
like, look out.
Ooh.
Great. Small companies like the cigar box, right? I mean, we're going to take a break. I'll be right back. All right, we are back. Your clumsy host knocked over his cup of coffee, but disaster has been averted. And, we were talking about full circle
Mm-hmm.
marketing, that you're more interested in not just let me throw out an ad
Mm-hmm.
and get somebody's attention, but it's more get the attention, maybe get them interested, convert them to a customer,
Mm-hmm.
make sure they use the product, and then focus at, I guess, not just acquisition, but retention.
Often your greatest source of additional sales or customers is through your existing customers. That obviously goes very much so for big financial brands where I've worked, but even for you, retaining your customers, having them repeat purchases, refer people, that's a huge element to growing your business. So from the smallest business to the largest, I think it's really important.
Do you think a lot of companies, regardless of their size, I mean, that's the game though, right? Is customer retention.
Yes.
Like we get them, but how do we keep them? How do we make them stay? How do you think, are people dropping the ball on that pretty bad?
I think it's pretty well known that that's important, but I definitely think people drop the ball and don't think through every aspect of it, and they definitely don't do everything they could be doing. And it's pretty simple. I mean, it's really customer service at scale. So whereas for a business your size, it might just be shooting a note to somebody or calling them, larger businesses have to do that at scale. And I think that they could be doing a better job. It could be more personalized. That's where being fully steeped in the world of artificial intelligence right now is fascinating, because it's enabling businesses to do hyper personalization at scale. Whereas previously you might have a customer retention program, CRM, we refer to it as that. And it might be buckets of customers, like people who have a checking account, people who have a savings account, and maybe even within that, there might be a couple tiers of customers. Now, AI is enabling companies to hyper-personalize every communication to be bespoke to that customer. And it's the same feeling as if I have a personal connection with someone and they're calling me as an individual. It allows brands to do that at scale.
That's true. However, and I don't know, I'm only going to speak for myself here, just because I use some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've used AI a lot lately for various things. But I'm the kind of guy who knows that going in. When I'm doing business, whatever, it doesn't matter if I buy a product from somebody or whatever. I mean, from a strange company, like, not if I'm having Sean train my dog. I mean, that's a whole different ball game. But then if I'm getting like these hyper personal notes, I'm like, you didn't write that to me.
I think that's fair.
You know what I mean? I know you didn't write that to me.
Yeah. And I get those too. I get so many sales emails, especially for my role with Winston. And you can tell that they're written by a robot. And they're like trying to be personalized, but they're not. So I think there absolutely are degrees of doing it well and not doing it well. But I think that as companies get better and there's more capability to do it well, there's a lot of opportunity there. But absolutely right now we're in a phase where so many products are not doing it well.
I feel like that nothing will ever replace the human connection, no matter how advanced AI gets. And of course, like, if you're running a big company, doing that at scale almost becomes impossible, which is fine. I mean, that's the game we play. But like, considering some of the things that I want to do with my podcast, well, that's a one-on-one, maybe one-on-two, and it's super easy. And so trying to keep a human element is massively important. But you go from what's the word I'm looking for? I guess from the corporate side at Razorfish, working for
agency side.
You go from the agency side
to corporate
to the brand side, and you are at TD Ameritrade,
correct,
and then eventually to Capital One. What's in your wallet? Which
good job,
Capital One. That's in my wallet. That's my credit card for the cigar box.
Oh, good.
But so how is that transition going from, all right, I'm working for 7 different companies right now trying to dial in their thing, versus now I'm the brand and I have to perform just for this one. That's a different world, right?
It is. And I loved it.
Yeah?
Yes. I was always the person at the agency who loved working on the same account for many years, going really deep and understanding the ins and outs of the business and what truly made a difference to drive the bottom line and really get to know them. And so I loved being on the brand side because it's just an extension of that, deeply, deeply understanding the ins and outs of the business and the audience and how we make money and what you need to do to drive growth, and truly, truly being on the hook to drive growth. At an agency, you sort of give your best suggestion and recommendation. Hopefully, if you're good, it's a very, very good recommendation, but then the client decides if they're going to take that recommendation or not. On the brand side, you're the last stop and the throat to choke on those decisions. And so there's even more skin in the game. And I absolutely loved it from the start.
So what did you do for them?
I started out my first year leading digital marketing, which at a company the size of TD Ameritrade, that's a pretty big job in and of itself. My budget for just media was $65 million a year, but I stayed 8 years. And so
that's ridiculous.
I know.
$65 million a year strictly for digital marketing.
Yes. My purview kept growing because we were doing very scientific, really smart, effective work. And so first of all, to keep doing that, we had to keep getting more sophisticated. So I was constantly building out our marketing technology stack and capabilities. And so I was able to grow a marketing technology team under me that was just focused. We had so much need that I had a couple people dedicated to just building out that stack. And then to do the really smart marketing we were doing, I needed an analytics team. So I grew that function. And so my purview kept growing because so much of what my team was doing with digital marketing was highly measurable. I took over a lot of the marketing measurement, and through that started taking over all of our media. So when you add in TV and print and radio and all the offline channels we used to call it, now it's kind of all digital. We were spending $175 million a year in media, and I took all of that over, as well as the media measurement. And then I took over the website team because like I was saying, a huge element of the digital marketing was then getting them to convert. And we were on the hook for hundreds of thousands of accounts a year because 90% of our acquisitions came through online channels. So to reach those numbers and to be successful, we had to constantly optimize our website and really ensure that there was not a wasted impression. So if someone got to our website, you needed to convert that person. And one challenge we had was that you couldn't always know who someone was when they got to your website. If they clicked through an ad, yes, but very few people actually do that. So something like 70% of the people who came to tdameritrade.com, we didn't know who they were or what they wanted. They were direct type. They just typed it into their browser. So we were using AI and machine learning back in 2015, 2016 to try to decipher who was coming to the site.
So if somebody just, like you said, types in their URL, tdameritrade.com, you don't know who they are. But do you know who they are? Like if they click an ad from somewhere else and they take them?
You know, because you know two things. If truly they clicked on an ad, you have that cookie, and so you know exactly who they are, and that's the lowest hanging fruit, because then you're like, okay, they came from Yahoo Finance, they were researching the ticker symbol AAPL, and they clicked on an ad, and so we know that they're interested in buying stocks.
Yeah.
That's the easiest. Sometimes if they're coming from another website, you can also sort of decipher who they are. Maybe they're coming from CNBC or MarketWatch. But if they just type it in, you don't really know who they are. And we had 3 types of people come into the site. We had traders who want to buy stocks, buy equities. But even within there, there's sort of the average investor who's just going to maybe buy some Apple stock and hold it. But then there's the sophisticated traders who are using our advanced trading platform, who are doing options and futures and all sorts of sophisticated trading strategies. And we want to get them really quickly to that more sophisticated platform. And then you had existing customers who were just coming to log into their account. And if you can figure out who they are, you want to give them a different experience. So we had to figure out ways to get people the right experience really quickly. And so we used machine learning. Now you would call it AI. Back then it was really machine learning.
Sure.
To take different signals and try to hypothesize who that might be. But it made a huge difference. If you could get someone to the right experience, their conversion rate went up, their engagement rate went up. They were much more likely to open an account.
I'm the guy who like always is like, no strictly necessary cookies only.
Yeah.
But that's probably a lie. It's probably all, you click that, but they've got it all back in it to where it's everything.
No, truthfully, but there's a lot of rules around that now, starting in like 2016, GDPR and then the California data legislation, where truly if you say you don't want to be tracked, you can't be tracked. The company can get in a lot of trouble.
Sure.
I'm your opposite. I'm like, track me, know who I am, get me to the right experience.
I don't know. I mean, I just feel sadly like, part of the great thing about being an American is that we have privacy, but I think we don't. I know we don't have privacy anymore. It's an illusion. So you can say it out loud.
It's an illusion.
It is.
It's funny. I went to MIT has a graduate program where they just study different topics. It's called the MIT Media Lab. And in it's probably 2015, 2016. We went there, and one of the topics that was being studied as a graduate program was privacy. And basically, their hypothesis was that privacy is dead.
Yes.
And the sooner we can accept that, the better we will be as consumers. But they were sort of studying the fact that there's all these companies making money off of you and your lack of privacy. What if people own their own persona and could sell it? So you could say, okay, you can serve me ads, but I'm going to make money off of that. And it went, for a while, there were a couple companies working on this, but I feel like, and it was called Web3, the notion that instead of following people around, you give them more ownership. But I feel like with the growth of AI and how much that's taken over the dialogue in the world, I haven't heard as much about that lately.
Considering everything you said about working at TD Ameritrade, you start with you get a $65 million annual budget for digital ads, and then you're up to 170 million, and you're taking over, Francie's taking over the company.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any idea what you were getting into when you left Razorfish?
Not really. I was excited, and I knew that it was going to be a great opportunity and a lot of upside. And I was excited to take everything I'd learned and apply it to this new side of the house. Could I have imagined that I'd be running a $175 million media account and on the hook for 200,000 new customers a year? Probably not, but I think I would have been excited about it.
Yeah. So what did you take with you in your tool belt from Razorfish over to TD Ameritrade?
I took some really sophisticated approaches, and some of that I had Capital One to thank. They were a client of mine for almost 5 years at Razorfish. I later went to work for them in-house.
Always helps.
But at the time especially, I used to joke that they weren't marketers. They were rocket scientists masquerading as marketers. And truthfully, they tend to promote into marketing at Capital One from the business analysts, scientific side of the house.
That makes sense.
So it truly is very mathematical-oriented people working in marketing. But because of that, they really pushed us to do extremely sophisticated measurement and attribution to really understand what was working. And when I got to when I got to TD Ameritrade, I just assumed everybody was doing that. I'd been in this bubble for a while of doing this really bleeding edge work. And when I got to TD Ameritrade, they were still measuring just a conversion. So someone comes to this site, opens an account, that's a conversion, check, we did our job. Whereas we were doing stuff at Razorfish where someone goes to Capital One, opens an account, they fund it with this much money. We were so much further along in how we were showing the value. And so I was able to bringing them
to
TD Ameritrade and really quickly make an impact on up-leveling how we were measuring, what we were aiming for. And then I was able to get a lot of momentum, and sort of every year we up-leveled.
Mm-hmm. Did you reach out to them, or did they call you?
A recruiter reached out to me. But I was at a transition point. We had a big client come in the door and basically say, we'll give you this exorbitant amount of money to take on our account. And I transitioned off the Capital One account that I'd worked for years to go work on this new account. And I just didn't enjoy it as much. And I just was losing a little bit of excitement. And so I was sort of open to what was coming. And just at the opportune moment, someone reached out, and there was a lot of kismet, because I happened to know someone who I'd worked with at Razorfish who was working at the agency that was going to work with this role. And so there was a lot of it didn't feel like a crazy step.
Yeah. Well, how was the move from TD to Capital One?
Much more jarring. Much more jarring. Very different organizations. TD Ameritrade, while it's massive, I always joked at the time that we were half Canadian and half Midwestern because we were actually headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, even though I was working in New York. We had a huge office there. And the TD part was Canadian. And so there was this culture of niceness and camaraderie and collaboration. And I got to Capital One, and they're very lovely people. The CEO of Capital One is one of the smartest, nicest humans, but it's a much more competitive, out for yourself, different culture. Additionally, I had a very, very different role there. Whereas at TD Ameritrade, I was on the hook for driving growth and opening a certain number of accounts every year. You're much more of a cog in a giant wheel at Capital One. So I had ownership of this hugely important segment, there were a lot more cooks in the kitchen, and I didn't have that end-to-end ownership. And it was a combination of marketing supporting a business team, and the business team was a little bit more on the hook for driving results than the marketing team. And so it was very, very different.
That doesn't sound super fulfilling.
It wasn't, but it was an opportunity to really grow new muscles. Whereas like I said, was doing digital marketing and media and technology at TD Ameritrade. My role at Capital One was really a brand strategy role. So understanding my target audience inside and out, and then ensuring that new products we develop would meet their wants and needs, storytelling across the marketing spectrum, creating ads, as much more hands-on, and TV, the channels that while I bought the media for, I wasn't as involved in the scripts and the TV shoots and things like that. And credit card's really interesting because it's a very different shopper's journey than brokerage and IRAs, which is what TD Ameritrade really focuses on. And so it was sort of learning a whole new tool set of how to reach people and break through to them and what matters to them. And then in credit card, getting someone to open a card is truly the halfway point, like half the battle. You have to then get them to, believe it or not, you have to really encourage people to activate the card. You'd be shocked how many people open a card, get the card, and then never activate it, which blows my mind to this day. And then you have to get people using that card.
Why would you get a card and not use it?
I really don't understand.
Doesn't make any sense.
But only about 60% of people who get a card use it.
Yeah. I've blown up my Capital One card for this room we're sitting in.
Yeah. We love customers like you.
Well, you do and you don't, because I'm the guy who pays off his balance at the end of every month. So
True.
I don't make you any money.
True. Although you would have been my segment, and we make money off the transaction fees,
Sure.
as well as people paying interest. So we like you too.
Sure. It's a love-hate relationship with people like me.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, there is some of it that's fraud. So there's massive fraud in the credit card industry.
Sure.
And there's real fraud, and then there's artificial fraud. There's people who go to activate their card and it looks like fraud, but it's not fraud. So let's say they moved in the past month. It looks sketchy and fraudulent, and they might have trouble activating and get frustrated and then never activate. So there's a huge segment of hundreds of people at Capital One who just focus on fraud prevention and ways around ensuring that fake fraud doesn't happen, ensuring that the real fraud people don't get through. It's a absolute ongoing battle, and every day there's new types of fraud invented. It was sort of interesting. Again, something I didn't encounter at TD Ameritrade that was so interesting to learn about.
Listening to you talk and going all the way back to, I have a friend who works in this ad agency saying it sounds glamorous, and then just listening to the arc of your story from there all the way to Capital One. And I'm just going to throw this out there. It may not, probably don't see it at the time, and maybe this isn't even it, but I'm listening to a woman who's talking about her career in marketing, and I go to this place and I do this, and then I move to this, and then I move to this, and it just, the skills that you learn, you use the phrase like exercise a new muscle. It just sounds like I'm doing these things for a while, and I've been very good at them and successful at them, but I feel like maybe it gets a little stale, and there's an opportunity for you to stay in marketing, but learn something new. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to go for that.
Yeah.
Is that
I would say
fair?
that's been a through line of my entire career is I really enjoy learning and personal growth. And I've tried to always do new things and take on new things so that I can continue to grow and learn and expand my skill set. So that has been something I've really focused on.
After all that time, in 2022, you decide to leave the corporate machine. Why?
I got really lucky that as my job was winding down, I had a colleague at Capital One who was starting a Fintech and needed help. And, we were down here in Greenville, and there's less big corporate roles here. And it was a really interesting opportunity to take everything I'd learned. And I hadn't really worked in that smaller Fintech space. And I thought it was exciting to take everything I'd been doing and apply it to a different type of business and have the freedom of working for myself, working remote. And it just felt like the natural next step. And then just sort of snowballed from there, where other clients came along through my network and connections. Winston AI, who's one of my biggest clients now, was founded by a person I worked with at TD Ameritrade, who sold me media at TD Ameritrade. He reached out when he was starting Winston, really just to pick my brain, but it ended up being an opportunity to work together. So it's just very organically grown and taken off.
I'm just going to jot this down because when this episode comes out, we need to shout out Winston and we need to tag them. I looked up their website the other day. And so just for our listeners who don't understand, because sometimes on the show we use lingo, like, is that financial technology, Fintech? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Fintech is financial technology.
Okay, because I wasn't sure, but I assumed that's what that was. So in 2022, you decide I'm just going to be, what's the word? I mean, I'm not an independent contractor, but you're a freelance fractional CMO.
Yeah. So I do everything from consulting on projects to fractional CMO work. That's kind of a growing category, especially as there's so many startups who maybe aren't ready for a full-time head of marketing or CMO, but want someone to set that strategic vision. They can hire someone on a fractional basis to kind of get them going. I think more companies should do it than even do it now. I've encountered companies who are looking to hire someone full-time, and upon talking to them, I'm like, you really just need someone fractional to get you started, and then hire some junior people to do some of the nitty-gritty work.
Right.
I think more people should do it, and I think they're starting to.
Oh, yeah, because a small company just doesn't have a budget to pay like a chief marketing officer, whatever, on a full-time basis. So if I can nab, Francie Staub for 15 hours a week or whatever the number happens to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, why wouldn't you do that? So what are you doing at Winston?
Winston, I am their fractional head of marketing. We create AI tools and an AI layer for financial platforms Their first product was really aimed at brokerages, so like a TD Ameritrade, who wants to accelerate their AI capabilities. They can work with Winston and very turnkey implement AI within a few weeks in their platform versus when you build it yourself, it's like 4 months, 6 months, a year. We're talking to people who weren't able to work with us, and they're like, we're building internally, and it's been a year and a half and they still haven't launched anything. So it's a way to really accelerate your AI capabilities. We've expanded well beyond brokerage now, and we work with wealth management, with banks, with financial platforms. One of our big clients is Benzinga.com, which is a financial data and information site that a lot of people are familiar with. That's a great place that the listeners can go check out because it's more public facing. It's not behind a login. If you go to Benzinga, their AI capability is Winston. They white label it, as we call it, as Benzinga AI. But if you go there on the bottom right, there's a widget where you can pull up an AI window, and you can either use it to ask questions in natural language. You can analyze stocks. There's a lot of different things you can do to tap into the artificial intelligence to better understand things that you're investing in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a pro version of it that goes even deeper.
Mm-hmm. Is that Bizinga?
BENZINGA.com, Benzinga.
BEN.
BENZINGA.com.
But that's backed by Winston.
That their AI is Winston.
Okay.
White labeled.
Yeah. And how long? So, I mean, sounds like things are moving.
Yeah, it's I've been working with them. It's coming up on 2 years at the end of the summer. They've only been around since 2024. I jumped on pretty early. But it's going really well. There's just such a demand right now. Brands are so hungry to add AI capabilities. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's nice with Winston is it was built specifically for financial services, where there's very stringent regulatory compliance things you had to be thinking about. When it comes to financial services, you want to make sure the AI is accurate. When you're talking about artificial intelligence, there's a high hallucination rate with a lot of the LLMs that people are using, like Claude or ChatGPT. You can't afford that in financial services. It needs to basically be 100% accurate.
What do you mean hallucination rate?
Hallucination is when the AI doesn't know an answer and it kind of makes something up and it's wrong.
Oh, okay.
That's called a hallucination.
Okay.
But it's just lack of accuracy. But
right.
You can't afford that in financial services.
Sure.
And it's highly regulated. So that would be not only non-compliant, but just terrible customer experience mm-hmm. because you don't want to give someone bad information about their investments. So Winston addresses that by only using financial grade data. We have hallucination guardrails that have been built to ensure that there's never an inaccurate answer. And then we have an internal compliance agent module that's proprietary to Winston. So every response or every personalized piece of information that's served up in a platform goes through the compliance agent as a last stop and make sure that we're not saying anything we're not allowed to say from a regulatory perspective. They're a global company, so in the U.S., that means FINRA regulations, SEC regulations, but we work in Europe, the Middle East, Korea, Japan, and so there's all these regulatory bodies around the world that we have to teach and train the compliance agent on. The nice thing about AI is we also can work with about 200 different languages. It can essentially translate into any language. And we are in the process of launching with a Korean broker right now, and they're blown away by how good the Korean is. That's been a really fun and interesting implementation. But it's been so fun for me because it's working back in the realm. I was working at TD Ameritrade in a lot of regards, but I'm getting to work in this rapidly evolving and expanding AI space.
Sure. Well, I was going to ask you about that. Do you feel like you're back at an internet moment?
I do. Oh, absolutely. I have deja vu almost every day for so many different reasons. One is that I think there's a lot of fear around AI right now. And I saw that with the internet advent. I saw that in the early days of mobile marketing. People were really nervous about information being on mobile and very hesitant. I see companies going through the same hesitations and sort of spinning of wheels that they did with other tech shifts, just happening again with AI.
Yeah. I know there's probably a little bit of nuance difference there, because when the internet thing came along and people were talking about banner ads, you said nobody would want to touch them with a 10-foot pole. But I feel like AI is a little different. You said there's so many companies that are hungry to get AI incorporated, but do you still feel like you're on the pioneer? Like, do you still feel out in front?
I do. I think that there's the early movers who are implementing AI. I think there's the slower adopters who are talking about it a lot, but not necessarily doing anything. So I see those levels that I've experienced before, but I think that this is a little bit more intuitive than other tech shifts, and people see the value a lot more. Now, there are negative sides to it, like you were saying. I think we've all gotten AI-driven communications that just feel off and robotic. So I think there's a lot of, to me, that's like the Punch the Monkey ads of 1999, that there's some rough things happening. But I think when you have a really dazzling AI experience, it really changes your mind. I personally use AI for a lot of my work, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT. It really helps me as a thought partner to map out a strategy. I'll use it to poke holes in a strategy. I'm so used to having a big team where I might have a notion on what we should be doing and put it out there, but I'm like, but tell me what I'm not thinking of. I use AI in that way as my team to make my strategy stronger. Even writing, it helps me a lot as when I'm trying to get an outline or a really rough first draft. I'll use that and then polish it in my own voice and make it my own.
Yeah, I have had a ChatGPT subscription probably since last November, September, something like that. And I did a ton of work on just the podcast, on the cigar box. And the cigar box right now is kind of taking a back seat, partly because we're just getting out of winter and it's dead anyway. But the podcast is growing, and my wife complains a little bit. She's like, "You're just always over there." And I'm like, "Well, babe, I'm working. I'm not doing nothing." But this last weekend we visited friends of hers in Alabama, and he told me about Claude, and I never used Claude. And I think each, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Google Gemini, and there's others, I'm sure. And they're not all the same. They each have their strengths.
I agree.
And just tinkering around with Claude for what I do is better. It seems to be, because it's for my podcast, I work hard at, this is a conversation podcast, right? And I work, as I told you a little bit while we were on break, I was cleaning up my coffee mess, conversation arc and storyline and all of those. And Claude just seemed to be sharper and a little bit more professional than ChatGPT. And so I've already moved. I canceled my GPT and signed up with Claude. But what ChatGPT does, or GPT does, that's better, is all of my visual graphic creation for social media posts. Claude's not great at it. I mean, it did some cool stuff, but then I'm like, this doesn't work. You send me a file that's HTML. And it said, I can't do that, and that's fine. But, and I've built so much in those, just helping with my podcast. I mean, by the way, I'm not, in this podcast, I'm not like spitting out what Claude gave me to say or ask to you. It builds a skeleton, but it can never replace two humans just sitting down talking.
I agree, but for me, it's just a good jumping off point, and it saves me time. The way I think of it, and by the way, my head is nodding with what you're saying about Claude. I'm starting to use that more and more, although I still like ChatGPT for strategy and sort of CEO level thinking for my work. So I'm using them both right now.
Yeah.
But
I'll cross-test the ideas.
Yeah.
I'll copy and paste it and put it in Claude and say, ChatGPT says this. What do you say?
Yeah.
And then vice versa.
But to me, it reminds me of having a really sharp junior level employee who you can trust to delegate things to and who you're just blown away by how much they get it. Like I'll instead of sitting and tormenting myself over getting something started, I will ask one of them, like, how do I start on this, or outline what my approach should be for that. And it comes back in 2 seconds, and it's so good.
Yeah.
And it just saves me a lot of time. And I really enjoy it. I am experimenting now with what the best ones for creative development and video are. That's not something I necessarily offer my clients, but I'm trying to just expand.
I think Gemini is going to be for video and graphic things. I mean, it does really well. Like I can't tell you how many times I've pressure tested this system with ChatGPT and even Claude for what I'm about to do in this room, because Sunday afternoon we smoke cigars. No, we're not smoking today. But this room, like, man, I have put so much into it because I'm taking the podcast to video, right? Now, a couple of things. This room, I cannot allow smoke from this room to get to the rest of the house. So, like I told you, this HVAC supply here is going to be capped off. So I've got a portable AC over there that's going to be installed and vented on that wall tomorrow evening. I've already got my Rabbit Air. That is the air scrubber, handles the particulate. Tomorrow evening on this wall, which is also an exterior wall, will go the exhaust fan. I upgraded from a 4-inch exhaust to a 6-inch. I think it was a good call. The deal is it all works on paper. And that portable AC unit obviously will cool the room, but I will also angle the vent so it gently blows this way and nudges the smoke towards the exhaust.
That's smart.
So, I mean, I have spent hours fine-tuning this system, and it has to work. Like Sunday Afternoon Smokes, like I told you, it's a local show, and I'm working hard at it being local, and I don't have massive numbers. Last time I checked, I think, and I'm excited about this, but I had in the last 30 days 143 hours worth of listening on Spotify. So that's a nice
start.
That's almost 3 hours a day. People are listening to this show. But you see the room, you see how it's coming together. I told you what's going here. You're the last audio only episode. Fist pump from Francie. Then we go to video, and here's the problem. I cannot have smoke hanging in the air on video.
That's true.
It has to clear the room. It has to be moving. And like that thing's pretty quiet. That thing will be pretty quiet. I'll run it on low, and they'll have this exhaust fan that'll be the constant. So, and I think Async's AI background noise cancellation and audio tech boosting will be fine for voices, but what I don't want is for my guests to come in here and this room just be a little too noisy in real time for us. So I have all of these things I've used AI to figure out. They're like, yep, this is going to work. But it all works on paper and in theory.
Right.
But if I get this camera in here and start recording and I've just got a hazy environment, it ruins the video. So I'm under a lot of stress from where I want the show to go. But hopefully AI.
You'll have to report back on how the AI.
I mean, but I figured this is kind of like how you're using AI.
Yeah.
In what you do.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It allows us to do things because when it comes to air exchange in like an official, like legit cigar lounge, like a brick and mortar place, they're aiming for probably anywhere from 12 would be a little bit on the low end, 15 to 20 would be better. So that's basically removing all the cubic feet of air in this room and replacing it with clean air and how many times you can do that per hour. Right? I'm not an HVAC tech. I don't understand how that stuff works. I'm like, okay, ChatGPT, I've got a Rabbit Air minus A2. I've got a Medea Duo dual hose 12,000 BTU. I've got an AC Infinity Cloudline Pro S6. Can you run these calculations on what my air exchange is going to be? I mean, is that okay for this size of this room? We'll see.
We will see.
It's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's good about AI. You can figure out stuff that you.
It's a thought partner. To me, it just saves a lot of time on research rather than me going to 10 different sites.
Right.
It just bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah.
Does it for you.
So let me ask my friend, Francie Staub, marketing exec extraordinaire. This local show that's gaining traction, and taking it to video will help a lot.
Yeah.
You see the look. You're experiencing the show, how I am as a host, how I converse with people. From a marketing standpoint, what would you do with Sunday Afternoon Smokes?
Well, I think that the people you're talking to, you're sort of building a community of really interesting, smart people in the upstate. And I think I could see you developing more community around that. I actually see a lot of intersection between your podcast and the mobile cigar business, where that could be, if there were community, that could be the physical manifestation of it. I think cigars really bring people together. And so I see a lot of intersection between the two. I know you said you're spending less time on the cigars, but to me, they coexist. Because what do you do over a cigar? You get together with people. It's like a moment of getting to know someone, talking, maybe a group of guys getting together, a group at a wedding, hanging out. And to me, that is sort of the same idea of a podcast, as you're kind of sitting down, taking a moment, learning about somebody. So I think continuing to build community and maybe even being a connector among some of the people you're talking to, and how can you support different businesses. I think there's something there.
Yeah. I've had very, very similar thoughts, and I can fill you in post show on my plans. Last question when it comes to marketing, and then we'll get into some other things. I've never seen it, but I know, you and me and Tony and my wife, we always seem to wind up talking about like what's good on Netflix or whatever. Did you watch Mad Men?
Yes.
Okay. I figured it's right up your alley as a marketer.
I loved it.
No, I'm sure you did. And that's what marketing in the 1950s?
Yeah.
Is that the right
60s.
50s, 60s? Okay. Do you, considering the show Mad Men and what they portrayed versus having lived through marketing from 1996 to current, how does that intersect, like the show and your life?
First of all, the show is so accurate. Even though I would say minus a couple martinis, ad agency life in New York is so similar to what Mad Men portrays, and that you might not, as a watcher who isn't as steeped in the ad agency world, you might not think as much about the different roles. There's the account guy and the creative guy and the media guy. But as far as the roles in an ad agency, it's so dead on to sort of the stereotypes of who's in that role and what do they do and what do they like. And I think that's what initially drew me in, although it just great actors and great script and storylines. So it felt very, very accurate to me. And I would say it's much more glamorous than advertising in the 90s and 00s and 10s, whereas a lot more grunt work, just sitting at your desk till 10 p.m., knocking out a spreadsheet of media placements or a report, but very, very dead on.
Nice. I'm going to have to watch it. I've never seen it.
It's really good.
It's
really good.
All right. I said we were going to talk about this, so we need to take some time and talk about New York City. Obviously a very different place from Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Before we talk about New York City, let me just run through this, though. Why did you and Tony move here?
It was a case of New York was really, really shut down with COVID, and we were looking for something new. And we visited a friend down here, and it was a beautiful spring weekend. We went out to restaurants where I don't think we'd eaten in a restaurant in a year, because everything was so shut down. I don't think we'd been anywhere without a mask in a year, but here it felt like everything was open. We went bike riding on the Swamp Rabbit Trail. We were at all these amazing restaurants. We went to the TD Market downtown on Saturday morning. It just immediately grabbed us, and there was some business opportunity down here that I got connected with. And next thing you know, we were moving. And it was a little bit wild out of the blue, but also an interesting adventure for both of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say that I am super glad to have met you and Tony.
Same.
And developed this friendship, which, it's wonderful people that I would have not met otherwise. And something that's just funny how life works like that. But what do you miss about New York City?
Ooh, so much. I love New York and I miss it, although I love it here. I was just there for a week, 2 weeks ago, and I love walking everywhere. I'm a walker, and we live downtown, so we walk everywhere here as well, more than the average Greenvillian will walk anywhere and everywhere. I think people think we're a little weird. But I just miss walking everywhere. Like, even on a day where you don't work out, you easily walk 10 or 12,000 steps just going about your day-to-day life in New York. I love that. I thrive on the energy. I love the hustle bustle. Some people move there and immediately hate it because you're never alone. There's so many people everywhere. And I think to some people that feels oppressive, but I just loved it. I get energy from that and really enjoy just being around so many different people all the time, and just fabulous, fabulous energy. I obviously love everything New York offers. The food, first and foremost, is so amazing. And not even the expensive restaurants. Like, you have your neighborhood pizza slice that's some of the best pizza you've ever had, or your little hole-in-the-wall sushi place that is top-notch, insanely good sushi, and it's just a little hole in the wall. And then I'm very into the arts, whether it's art galleries or museums, but also opera, ballet, theater, symphony. There's really amazing arts at all times. And it is an expensive city, but there's also so much you can do for free. There's always something going on. So it just feels very exciting and interesting and livable.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to keep everything in perspective as far as, like, I mean, it's Greenville, South Carolina. So, I mean, there's some good food options here.
Mm-hmm.
There is. I mean, and I don't think really it's fair to compare. It's not fair to compare Greenville food with New York food. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's hard to compare the food options in New York to anywhere else globally because of what New York City is. There's so many different people there, so many different cultures, so many different options. I mean, you probably get some of that in Los Angeles, you know, maybe San Francisco. I don't know, but so when my wife and I and you and Tony, when we finally make the trek, the four of us to New York City, I don't, and I think everybody is this, maybe not everybody, but I think a lot of people are this way when you have a friend who is from somewhere. Like I don't want to go to the tourist trap places. I want to go where the locals go because the locals know where the really good stuff is, right?
For sure.
So
that's my aspiration in life on every trip is to be a local, eat where a local eats.
But you have to know somebody, and I know you. So where are we going?
Ooh. Well, first, there's so many decisions to be made for this trip because we have to figure out what part of town we want to stay in because that, there's Uptown where Tony and I lived our last couple of years near Central Park, which I personally love. And I think it's kind of a haven because you have the park and all this outdoor stuff, but it's easy to get anywhere in the city. But then some people want to be downtown and the kind of mix of all the hip, cool neighborhoods, or there's even an argument to be made for Brooklyn. So we'd have to figure out where we're going to be. But, the first morning, I would want to get you guys a really great bagel. They're just insane. Although there's actually really good bagels in Greenville, I will say. We shout out to Jersey Bagel Brothers.
Shout out to Jersey Bagel Brothers. I'm going to write them down, or otherwise I will forget.
Yeah, and I know there's other bagel places here, but we love our Jersey Bagel Brothers. But even different level in New York and so much variety. So really great bagel one morning. I love a good diner, and there's so many good diners in New York. So maybe one morning we'd go get like an awesome diner breakfast. You would definitely have to wear your stretchy pants because we're going to eat all day, every day.
I just won't wear pants.
Yeah. I mean, we're just like, how much can we stuff in our bodies?
Yeah. All right. Let me approach it this way. All right. So if I want a bagel, we're going to go to, well, what's the name of the place?
Here?
Not Jersey, but when we go to New York.
Oh, I mean, it depends on where we stay. There's great bagels in every neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where we let's pretend we don't stay in a location because that's going to hinder your
okay.
Right. Let's just
so location neutral
wherever.
Yes.
Right.
So
where are we going to go get pizza?
Goodness. I mean, there's so much good pizza. I would almost do a pizza crawl because there's like
one day's pizza.
I actually did this last summer because there were so many new pizza places that had popped up that I'd been seeing on Instagram and I hadn't been. So we did a pizza crawl. And so we'd probably go try a few slices, like sort of, just a neighborhood slice, like Joe's Pizza or John's.
Those are real places, Joe's?
They are. One of them might just be you have to get the whole pie. I get them all mixed up. So
to get a whole pizza.
But then there's new pizza places like Lindustry in the West Village or Mama's 2, which has a West Village location. So we try a variety of slices throughout the city and maybe a couple places that are pie only.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite restaurant in New York, I don't know that Tony agrees with this.
Well, he doesn't have to. This is
my tour. Favorite. There's a restaurant called Barbuto. It used to be in this old garage in the West Village of New York. And in the summer, they'd open up the garage doors and it was sort of this gritty, 10, 15 table restaurant that was sort of in the know, but the chefs become very, very famous, and it got harder and harder to get in. They ultimately moved and opened a much bigger space, but I still love the food. And so we'd go there. I can even tell you exactly what we'd eat there.
What are we eating?
We're starting with the kale salad. It's the best kale salad I've ever
terrible.
had. No, it's so good.
Terrible. You're going to give me a kale salad?
It's the best kale salad I've ever had anywhere in the globe. They also have awesome Italian appetizers, great cocktails. We then get the roast chicken. It's the best roast chicken I've ever had, with the crispy potatoes and the Italian verdure greens. And then a side of gnocchi. They have the best gnocchi.
I like some gnocchi, man.
Yeah. I don't even love gnocchi. I like their gnocchi. They're so good. And then
they do they make the potato dough. They roll it out. They cut it. You're going to drop it in boiling water, and then I assume maybe they're going to like pan fry it really quick in some brown butter.
That's the thing, is he pan fries his really nicely, so it has a nice crisp outside.
It's very pillowy inside.
Yeah, but so pillowy inside, and there's always an amazing sauce. It's so good.
Little green garnish.
Yeah.
Like pour that brown butter over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. All right.
And then save room for dessert, because they have this chocolate budino. It's a chocolate pudding I'm not even a chocolate person, but I have to get the pudding every time. It's so good.
Where are we going to get New York cheesecake?
Ooh, probably I would take you there's sort of the touristy Juniors, which has good cheesecake, but I would take you to more Little Italy, get an Italian style cheesecake. There's a couple famous bakeries down there that are like, they've been there 100 years.
Yeah.
I would take you there, and we'd also get I
want to get cannoli.
I was going to say we'd get cannoli and probably, an Italian almond cookie. So we do a whole Italian bakery run.
Yeah. Tony has told me multiple times about the place he likes to go get sushi, where you go and you sit, but you don't order. You just get whatever he makes for you.
Yeah. He will want to take you there.
Yeah.
That's actually outside the city in Westchester in Harrison, New York. So it sounds crazy to leave New York City, but this place is so good. And it's this really unbelievable sushi chef. He runs his own place. It's a tiny little hole in the wall, but it's the freshest, most wonderful sushi, and he just keeps feeding you. And it's just off the charts, fresh, amazing sushi. So we'd probably go up there. You can meet his dad.
I have to meet Tony's dad.
He's a character.
He didn't come.
Yeah. They're rescheduling.
Yes.
So we're going to get
it. So, all right, we've covered bagels and then a diner breakfast. We have a whole day dedicated to pizza. We've got cheesecake, roast chicken, cannolis.
We might want to squeeze in a deli meal.
Yeah, I want to go, dude. I want like one of the chicken Parmesan sandwiches that you just made, or just any of the deli sandwiches where there's where
it's like
corned beef
so high. Yeah.
Yeah, I need that.
We need to do
in
that
my life.
Yes.
And in my mouth.
That's a necessity. So we'd take you to a good deli, maybe Katz's, or there's a few good ones. There's great
there's gotta be
food. I love Korean food, and there's some really good Korean restaurants.
I'm a fan of ramen.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, so there's got to be great ramen there.
It's the best ramen I've ever had, and there's a few. So we could go to Puda, we could go to Otto. There's a million ramen places.
And you probably like it. I don't like it quite as much. My wife loves pho.
Yeah.
Is it big up there?
It is. There's more ramen than pho.
Okay.
But I'm not as much into pho, kind of like you.
Okay.
So I would do ramen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to make this happen, man.
We do. We're going to schedule it.
Okay.
We're going to get this.
We got to stop talking about it.
Yes.
And actually schedule it.
We are going to do it.
So you and Tony moved to Greenville during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you were working, working remote for Capital One still?
I left Capital One, then we moved.
You left Capital One, then you moved. And so, I guess this is 2020?
2021.
2021. And
End of 2021.
Into 2021. And so you have a little you have a little hiatus between moving and launching Staub Kent Consulting. And that's cool. I kind of backtracked a little bit, didn't mean to. We were talking about restaurants, and I need to stick with that because you said a little dream of yours is Francie Staub restaurant consultant.
Yes.
Are you, how much of a dream is it? Is it like a 100% dream, or have you kind of like dipped your toe in and talked to a few people you know? And
I haven't dipped my toe. By the way, this dates back to childhood. I would say from the youngest of young ages, my dad could tell that I loved cooking and food and eating out. And he's like, "You're not opening a restaurant." And he had a lot of friends who were restaurateurs, and he's like, "This is the hardest business."
yeah,
He's like, "You're never going into the restaurant business." And he would just coax me. But then all through high school and college, I waited tables to pay for school and, spending money. And I loved it. I loved working in restaurants. I loved being around restaurants, but I still heeded my dad's advice, never went into it. And then I would say, living in New York, you eat at the best restaurants in the world and you experience the good ones and the bad ones and what makes them tick and what great service looks like and what great food looks like. And so it's just something I'm always critiquing. And it's just one of those things where when I ruminate on what, a third act might be, I'm like, I think I'd be a good restaurant consultant. Especially, coming down here, there's some amazing restaurants, like you said, in Greenville, but I also see some that I'm like, ooh, I want to kind of coach them on the food or the service and help them professionalize and make things more consistent. And so it's something that I just think about a lot, but haven't really done any work to package that up.
It seems that your skill set lends itself. I mean,
yeah. You can see the connective tissue with marketing and customer experience.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just marketing and customer experience. I even link your like art history and the love of the arts and the ballet and the museum and all, because food is very artsy. So if you have a taste,
you can eat with your eyes first.
Yeah. I mean, if you know what you're doing and you have a flair or a taste for that kind of thing, and combining your love of art in what a plate should look like and how the food should taste and how the service flows and how we market this thing, and not to mention just the hands-on experience of eating everywhere in New York City, I see that, that's a kind of an opportunity. Although I would imagine, just like marketing, being a restaurant consultant is a multi-lane thing.
Yeah.
Because there's the people like looking for the buildings and the square footage and the machinery that you need. I don't really think that's what you're leaning into. You're more of the service aspect.
Maybe even menu a little. Honestly, customer experience, which to me stems from the food through to the service, through to any follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're not totally removed from the food world, because I do have here a bag of Francie's spiced nuts.
That's right.
I mean, and look, I will testify, your spiced nuts in this bag here, let's see. We've got, this is cashews, walnuts, almonds, pecans. Am I missing anything?
That's
I don't know how you make these, but they are fabulous. I mean, they're great when I have a cigar. They're great by themselves. I could probably eat the whole bag today. I don't know that I should.
Yeah.
Will I? That's a good possibility.
It's a passion project. I've been making them a long time and perfected the recipe over the years. And I think it's sort of just a fun hobby, side hustle, because I love to cook and I love food. And so it's just something that I always did it very informally. Like any party, people would come over and expect the nuts to be there. And then that turned into anyone who was inviting me over requested that I bring nuts. And that turned into, well, let me actually order labels. And then ultimately that turned into, well, maybe I could sell them. So I do sell them online at francieskitchen.com, FRANCIES kitchen.com. I also sell them through Revival Butcher certain times of the year around holidays.
That's great for fall.
Yeah.
These nuts are.
Yeah.
So francieskitchen.com, people can order these?
People can order them. I do corporate gifts, things like that. But it's just a bit of a hobby. But who knows? Maybe someday it'll turn into something more.
You never know. And I would highly recommend, if you're listening, that you get yourself a bag of Francie's Spice Nuts. Because they're insanely good. And I've eaten many bags of these.
Yeah.
I really have.
You're my best customer.
Well, that's... If people are listening to this podcast, and I have no idea who all listens to this podcast, but if people are in need of the services that you offer, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can either go to staubkentconsulting.com, and my contact information is there, and you can learn a little bit about me there as well as it has my contact information. You can find me through LinkedIn, you can find me through Instagram, but I'm so happy to talk to anybody and just see if it might be a fit to work together and just kind of talk marketing.
Yeah, how many clients do you have right now?
Several, but one really big one.
Yeah, sure. Last question, and this will be professional. Of course, you can take it whichever way you want to, but what should people be asking you?
Oh, goodness. That is a great question. It's funny, sitting here today, you really got me thinking about my career journey because we talk so much about work. And I often pinch myself. I feel like I've been really lucky because I've often been at the right place at the right time. But I also think that there has been some choice in that. And I think that it's something that anyone can learn from. And I would say it has a lot to do with resilience and reinvention. And I know I kind of like one thing flowed into the next, but every opportunity when I look back, it was about taking a little bit of a chance and doing something different. There was a book that was popular in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, called Who Moved My Cheese? Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
It's a career development, corporate development book. I think we were required to read it at TD Ameritrade. And it was about change and managing through change, because at TD Ameritrade, they reorganized a lot, and they were worried. People were always upset about that. But I love change because I see opportunity in it. So I think my advice to anybody, whether it's career advice or thinking about your business, is really stay attuned to what's going on and what trends are happening and how you can evolve or pivot or find opportunity. I think that's something that I've had a lot of success with, and that people can take from this is don't be scared of change, look for opportunity, and then just jump on the next bandwagon.
Awesome. Well, I've had to pivot in my life more than once, and ultimately I pivoted to this podcast, and 62 episodes later, here we are, and I think something really cool is about to happen with it. But, be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, look, I don't think I have anything else to cover with you unless there's some things that you wanted to hit that we didn't get to.
I think we really hit everything. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was super fun. We're going to have to get you onto more podcasts.
Sure.
I don't know who those people might be, but we'll see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
So, Well, Francie, thanks for carving out a couple of hours on a Tuesday to sit with me.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I love your podcast. I'm very excited for the next level with the video. I will watch it, and
appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And listeners, I appreciate you tuning in, although that's not really applicable because, it's not a radio. You don't tune into a podcast, but the lingo still carries, right? Thanks for listening. Share Sunday Afternoon Smokes with your friends, with your family. Share it on your socials and share it with the world, because Sunday Afternoon Smokes is really sweet. We will talk to you soon.